Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of the Prime Time Newscast on Canal International. I'm called Maureen. We'll begin with our top stories. Night in what many have described as a do-or-die encounter between Cameroon last Friday. The Lions must have a convincing win in Algeria to grab one of the 5 World Cup tickets in Qatar in November. And after the Northwest region, Doctors Without Borders quit the Southwest region, addressing the public, Doctors Without Borders say the activities have been suspended beginning today. And transporters in the days ahead obtain transit documents without necessarily visiting the Land of Freight Managing Office. An online information system has been set up to ensure the fast, cost-effective and efficient transit of goods on the Douala-Jamina-Douala-Bangui corridors. Good evening once more, and we begin with sports. The indomitable Lions of Cameroon will take on the desert forces of Algeria this night in what many have described as a do-or-die encounter between Cameroon last Friday by Algeria. The Lions must have a convincing win in Algeria to grab one of the 5 World Cup tickets in Qatar in November. The boys, of course, Rigobert's song, have been multiplying strategies to fetch a victory from the game. The president of the Cameroon Football Federation, Samuel Eto'o, yesterday gave the Lions a moral booster by training with them ahead of that crucial encounter. The kickoff of the match is scheduled for 8:30 p.m. Cameroon time. After the Northwest region of Cameroon, Doctors Without Borders quit the Southwest region. Addressing the public, Doctors Without Borders say the activities have been suspended beginning today. They complain of difficulties to freely interact with governments and false accusations of possible collaboration with secessionists. These say hinders their services. Despite the suspension, Doctors Without Borders have promised to keep on supporting patients currently admitted under their care. They have decided not to provide ambulance services, no support to medical care in communities, private or public health institutions until status challenges are resolved. Doctors Without Borders have no plan of rendering services like before. We'll come back to that in our subsequent editions of Newscast. The March session of the Northwest Regional Assembly entered day 2 this Tuesday in Bamenda. At the beginning ceremony on Monday, both divisional representatives and members of the House of Chiefs brandished a brainstorm on the functioning of the 3.5 billion franc CFA budget, but said the deliberations went on in the absence of the Vice President, who is equally the phone of the Bambalang and President of the House of Chiefs, kidnapped almost 4 months ago. More in the following story.
Apart from distributing basic items to some internally displaced persons traveling to support PWD Football Club at the Cup of Cameroon finals and a few others, the house, which carries the hope of the entire people shattered by war, is still awaiting the setting up of a promised domestic gas plant, for example. At the start of its 4-day ordinary session for March, on Monday 28, both divisional representatives and members of the House of Chiefs are still bickering over the purchase of 8 service cars for their senior officials, which some have blamed on COVID-19.
What the contractor was saying was affected not only Northwest, but many regions, many organizations. Now the COVID epidemic affected many companies, probably the company in charge of production of vehicles, Toyota particularly. And that's why they could not deliver in many parts of the world, not only in Africa. But the contract has provisions to say if the contractor delays in payment, he has a penalty.
There have been calls for the contracts to be re-awarded if the present contractor is not delivering. Meanwhile, it is close to 4 months now that the President of the House of Chiefs has been in separatist captivity.
We decline and deplore the absence of the Vice President. As a House, we are pleading to whoever is keeping our Vice President for humane and humanitarian reasons. And not just our Vice President, but any others that are in captivity should be released.
Sending the press out of the hall, the representative of the state, Governor Adolphe Lili Lafrique, and the Assembly discussed efforts geared at securing the release of Fon Kevin Shumitang of the Mboyakum people safe and sound.
And transporters will, in the days ahead, obtain transit documents without necessarily passing through the Land Freight Management Office. An online information system has been set up to ensure the fast, cost-effective and efficient transit of goods on the Douala-Jamina-Douala-Bangui corridors. It was disclosed at a meeting that brought together management of the 3 land freight offices. More in the following story with our reporter, Gladys Ambodiba.
It is the first tripartite meeting of land freight management officials from Central Africa, Chad and Cameroon. They are charting a way forward for the smooth, cost-effective and efficient transit of goods on the Douala-Jamina-Douala-Bangui corridors.
We have been reviewing recommendations made by the different parties and to what extent we have gone. It was also an opportunity to discuss ways through which we could improve transit in the different corridors by reducing freight transport tariffs and meeting deadlines. All these will help goods arrive destination on time, drop down price of goods and improve the buying power of the population.
This is the first tripartite between BGFT, BNFT and BARC, and it's very important, and we have really interesting discussions.
As part of efforts to facilitate and respect the deadline for the issuance of documents and fight against administrative bottlenecks, a land freight information system has been set up to ease work for the different stakeholders.
If there's a virtual space for transportation requests and offers, it will be easier for transporters to obtain documents without necessarily moving from office to office. All they need to do is a smartphone, laptop and their tablet, and data for them to sign in to the system. With the system, in less than 1 minute, we can issue a vehicle letter for international and international consignment notes, that is the LVI and LVO. If there is no physical contact between us and those who solicit our services, I think it is a great step forward. This helps us to fight against bad practices and improve transparency.
The land freight information system will also control the movement and monitoring of the intermodal and intramodal distribution of goods.
Despite the surge in cholera cases in Cameroon, vendors of fruits and other food items are yet to take the right dispositions to bar the way against the epidemic. The poor handling of fruits has been identified as a breeding ground for the disease. More on the story with our reporter, Stephanie Chin.
The outbreak of cholera has triggered more awareness on the need for the population to respect hygienic conditions. Canal International went to some markets in Cameroon's economic capital to check on how fruit vendors are coping with the situation. It is scary, but we don't have the means to put them on sheds to protect the fruits. That is why we are obliged to place them on the ground. Before we sell, we advise our customers to wash fruits well before consumption. Conspicuously, fruit vendors are still to comply with the hygienic approach in handling fruits. It is not the first time, even though the situation is more serious this time, but we have not had intensive sensitization on the field. We have been cautioned not to place our fruits on the ground. Plants should be used with a height of 15 to 20 meters, so we try our best to respect measures. With thousands of cases so far and hundreds of deaths reported by the Ministry of Public Health, the situation is very alarming. Though fruits remain one of the transmission vectors of cholera, some people say they carry out thorough washing of their fruits before consuming them. I wash and disinfect my fruits with eau de javel before consumption. The situation is just that we respect hygienic conditions. I have no fear because I disinfect my fruits. In the meantime, sensitization campaign continues across the country on the measures to avoid being contaminated.
And vaccines against cholera said to have run out of stock in Boya in the southwest region of Cameroon as the epidemic continues to wreak havoc, particularly in the southwest region. Dozens of new cases continue to be registered in Limbe, Boya, Tiko, and other areas in the southwest region. Already more than 2,600 cases have been recorded since the start of the epidemic, with more than 50 deaths already. The government, through the public health minister, has announced plans of a nationwide vaccination campaign for April to begin between April to 12, 2022. And some health workers in the Fundi division in Yaoundé are currently being trained on measures to implement inclusive health care. The capacity building workshop is to enable the medical and paramedical practitioners overcome the plight of persons with disability, with many stigmatized and rejected in health units. More in the following story.
Most persons living with disabilities in Cameroon do not get appropriate health services as it should be. The special health facility is quite limited across the country.
Everywhere in Cameroon, we cannot have a special health facility to take care of that kind of people.
The difficulties in the normal health units quite enormous that render them more frustrated. Even at the level of the reception, handicapped persons are not well treated. They suffer rejection and stigmatization. There are others who cannot explain their problems because of the difficulties to hear or talk. Most of them do not have the means to buy the drugs prescribed or to get consulted. But the biggest problem they face is rejection and stigmatization. For example, we have had the case of a pregnant woman who couldn't put to birth because the midwife refused helping her to climb on the table. It is against these challenges that these medical and paramedical personnel of the Mfundi division in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, are brought together in this inclusive healthcare workshop to enhance their capacities to efficiently manage handicapped patients.
That's why we have to train all the medical people to accept how to treat them, how to talk to them, so that they can be in good health, so that they can without fear to see a doctor or a nurse to take care of them.
The medical workers in the 2 days workshop urged to shun all forms of violence and discrimination against persons with disabilities in their respective health centers.
And Congelcam officials have described the damaged decayed fish incident last Friday at Obala as a kind of distraction to the image of the company. The general manager, Remy Saw, was clarifying the issue to reporters this Tuesday in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. Though in the inquiries ongoing on the matter, the number of one frozen fish supplier in Cameroon reassures their clients that their code is meticulously respected. More on the story with our reporter, Beatrice Ngam.
In a bid to tell their own side of the story, on the Obala fish affair, Congelcam officials started with the facts of last Friday, March 23rd, 2022 happening. Surveillance camera images revealing cartons of fresh fish taken from the cold room into the sales hall before carrying into a waiting truck under the command of the Cliquez Divisional Delegate for Livestock and Fisheries. But the fish destroyed by the banks of the river Sanaga, they say, is not theirs. Seeing some kinds of disparities in the matter, the divisional officer of Cliquez talks about 5 tons of damaged fish seized from a renowned dealer. Journalists wrote about fish in a state of decomposition from many economic operators at Obala and Bachenga, where they are not installed. Some of the reports were aired during the exchange this day in Yaoundé. The general manager of Congelcam, sensing foul, asked why Obala when they are faring well all over the national territory. The video analysis widens the disparities. The destruction video, even more curious. The truck that was filled at the sales point appeared almost empty at the destruction site, with less than a ton. Incongruities, paradoxes, and more, pointing towards a kind of plot, according to the general manager. Remy Saw explains to reporters the cold chain of Congelcam meticulously respected from on shipment at the seaports to their warehouses.
Le poisson sort des cales du port, des bateaux, autour de 18 degrés de température, c'est produit surgelé. Et il rentre chez nous autour de 18 degrés. Et nos chambres froides de stockage sont dotées chacune d'un gros générateur pour anticiper d'éventuelles ruptures possibles.
The operation to unmask the issue behind the sale of sailfish pinned on Congelcam still ongoing. Occasion for Congelcam exhort its cost not to be swayed by distraction, out to tarnish the image, notoriety, and respect of the major frozen fish operator in the country, as their engagement remains to provide Cameroonians with quality and affordable fish and sea products.
And Cameroon Ministry of Justice has received surveillance cameras to help in the fight against forest crimes. The equipment is also aimed at facilitating the holding of video conferences during this period of COVID-19. Take a listen to the regional coordinator of the program under the United Nations Office Against Drugs and Crimes.
This is part of the implementation of a program with the ECAS, where UNODC is supporting ECAS member states to develop a front to combat this menace, which is illicit exploitation of natural resources in Central Africa, but more specifically to fight wildlife and forest crime. And in the context of the COVID, where people are still limited, it is important that Cameroon, which is a very important partner, participate in all international events that are online, and this is just to facilitate that.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of the Primetime Newscast in the English language on Canal the International. Thanks so much for watching. We have news in the French language at exactly 19h55. Alain Gisle Kangabe coming up next is the brief. Will Lille Peugeot will equally have a crucial encounter between Algeria and Cameroon. It will take place, or it starts at exactly 8:30 p.m. Cameroonian time. As for me, I'll be back same time tomorrow. Good night.